So I'm Cherise, I'm a fashion designer and I'm 24.
When did this love for fashion started?
So I would say this love for fashion started when I was in primary school and I always knew I wanted to be a fashion designer. It's just something that I've always wanted to do. So like I used to like have sketchbooks and just draw really bad drawings because I couldn't draw back in the day, by the way. I've improved now, but I couldn't draw. So I would do that and then I kind of like it was still in the back of my mind that I wanted to be a fashion designer, but obviously, you know, when you go through secondary school, like you have to do the specific options that they give you, and unfortunately, textiles and fashion wasn't available for me whilst I was studying at school. So I got into photography. So I started doing a lot of photography. People used to call me the camera girl, and then when I got into A levels is when I was able to do textiles. So from there, that's kind of how my journey began.
Okay. And what did your parents think about that?
Yeah, they've always been supportive. I'm quite lucky and grateful in that sense that my parents have always been supportive on my fashion journey.
How was the transition getting into university from secondary school to like the big boys now?
To uni. I would say that the transition was fairly smooth sailing. I say fairly because there were a few hiccups like on the way, but like so I started doing A levels as I was saying, and that's kind of where I learnt the work rate to create loads and loads and loads. So from there I was like, I definitely want to do fashion in London. So when I was 17, I think 16 or 17, I was just like looking at summer schools in London that used to do fashion, and it's quite an interesting story because I saw this summer school and the applications literally closed like 3 days before I saw it, and I was like, no, this is it. Like it said they were working with Central St Martin's, which is #1 fashion school in the world, and I was like, I have to get onto this summer course, like I have to. So obviously I rang them. I remember I was a bit brazen. I rang them and I was like, can I please join the summer school? And they was like, nah, sorry, applications are closed. And I was like, nah, I'm not having that. Like, no, it's just not good enough. Like I need to get on this course. So then after that I went with my sister and I was just like, we're just gonna have to pull up. We're just gonna have to go there and speak to them and literally just be like, please, can I get on? So I remember I went there and spoke to the lady that was running it, and she literally was like, do you know what? Because of your being so determined, I'm gonna give you a place on the summer school. And from there, that's how I got to. From there, I used to work with some of the tutors from Central St Martin's, and then that's how I started studying at Central St Martin's. From Central St Martin's, I studied at London College of Fashion to Milan, blah blah blah. So that's kind of how the journey from school to uni went. So I'm not even sure if I didn't get onto that summer school, if my path would have been the same.
And how was Milan, for example?
Milan has my heart. Like, I love that city so much. Like, the lifestyle, the culture, everything. And don't get me wrong, like, it is... Milan is quite an interesting place. But, like, in terms of, like, going there and studying, I feel like you have a different kind of experience to go in there just on holiday, because I had visited Milan like before, like maybe twice before I actually moved out there, so I knew the city a little bit, and it's quite a small city, so you kind of get to know it. But like when I started studying there, bear in mind I didn't know anyone. Like I literally had to go there, make friends, learn a new language, because in Milan they don't really speak English at all, so I learned a bit of Italian, and yeah, so it was just like making new friends, and from there it was just, I can't fault my time there at all. It was just fantastic.
Did it help your fashion?
Fashion definitely. Most definitely, because in England the fashion is a bit different to Italian fashion. Milan is a fashion capital to begin with, so their kind of fashion is very luxury. Not as expressive as it is in places like London and New York, but their fashion is very luxury. So it enabled me to start paying more attention to the details and the finer things. Like if you're looking at the stitches, the trims, and all of those perfect, beautiful things that turn a garment into a really good quality garment, and also looking at the fabrics that they use and like making connections with people out there as well. So definitely helped me with my fashion journey.
Have you had any setbacks in your work?
So I wouldn't really say setbacks in particular, but situations that have occurred that might have altered my journey and changed my journey. I would say the first one was when I was studying at uni, and everybody had to basically apply for an internship, because the degree is 4 years, so 3 years you study and then 1 year you're out in the industry or studying abroad. So basically I was applying to work for a really big company, and I basically done the interview process, everything was going well, literally thought, yeah, I've got this in the bag, I'm going to be moving abroad and working for this company. And then literally I got through the whole interview stage until the last part of the interview, and there's like, I'm sorry, you're not fortunate enough to be chosen for this internship. And I was just like, because you know when you feel like you've got something, so it's kind of like, I feel like that was I would say it was a setback. However, on spinning it, it kind of helped me on my journey, because even though I didn't get that was a 12-month internship, so I had to try and decide what I want to do instead of that. And I always knew I wanted to study abroad anyway, so I wouldn't even say that my whole heart was definitely in that, but I just thought that it was a good opportunity. So instead I decided to do my study abroad, which is why I moved to Milan, which is why I managed to get all those other opportunities. So it was definitely a good thing. And then when I moved back to England, because obviously you have to utilise the whole year, I still needed to do an internship. However, I couldn't find one, and I was just like, looking for an internship. It's just like long, because I knew I kind of only wanted to do the study abroad after not really getting that internship. So then I moved back to England and then couldn't find one, so I was just kind of like moping around as a student, as you do. And then I got somebody contacted me, because one of my friends from Milan kind of like showed me an opportunity about teaching in Florence. So I got that opportunity. Again, another setback, because I got accepted to do that. I'd even booked my plane tickets, was ready to go, and then something happened with the organisation, and unfortunately I wasn't able to do that. And I was just like, no way, like what am I going to do now? Like the whole summer I need to do something, because me as a person, I don't enjoy sitting still. I like to keep active and doing something, and especially because it meant I would have been back in Italy as well, and Florence isn't far from Milan, so I would have been able to go back and see my friends and all of that. But so that didn't work out either, so I was like, no way. And then it was just like understanding that just wasn't meant for me, because a couple of days later is when I got contacted by Tom Ford, and they was like, hey, are you still looking for an internship? And I was like, yes, just say yes. And then I went up there the next day, had an interview, and they was like, but can you start tomorrow if we want you to start tomorrow? And I was just like, yeah, sure. So it's kind of like you just have to say yes and work it out after, and then it worked out perfectly. So I would say those setbacks actually was just not meant for me, and my correct journey is kind of how it worked out. And then the second setback, I would say, was when last year I came back from doing a show for New York Fashion Week, and my collection was stolen. So it's kind of like that it could have broken me, and like it really did have like a knock-on effect, because obviously some of the garments were garments that I've been designing for ages, like put in a lot of work. Some of my tailors even put in a lot of work for those garments, so it was kind of like a lot. It was a very kind of expensive loss, because the fabrics were obviously really good quality fabrics, and the tailors that had made them are obviously great tailors as well. So that was kind of a setback. And one of the pieces that was stolen was one of my signature spacesuits, so the puffer jumpsuits, and I was like, oh, I kind of really wanted that, and it was reversible as well, so I was kind of like, but I'm not going to go into all the details. But anyway, long story short, so a stylist after that contacted me about, she said she really wanted to use a spacesuit, and I was like, I don't have the spacesuit, it's gone. So she was like, oh, I would really love like a different one. So I redesigned the reflective spacesuit for her to use for a shoot and things, and then just to lend the stylist for a shoot, and that worked out really well, because if I hadn't made that reflective spacesuit, Popcorn wouldn't have worn that reflective spacesuit for his show. So it kind of worked out well, the fact that maybe I wouldn't have even thought about designing that completely reflective spacesuit if I didn't have a reason, because if I just had the older one there, I would have probably just been like, oh well, I've already got one. So it kind of another setback where the collection got stolen. However, flipping it, I managed to have the great opportunity of Popcorn wearing it for his festival.
When you encounter obstacles, setbacks, how do you deal with them? Like, what's your thought process?
For me, I just don't allow it to get to me. So I don't like sit in it. Like, obviously I'll be upset for the time being, but I'm a person that's very like forward thinking. So I'm just kind of like, okay, that's happened, we move. Like, there's nothing I can physically do, and if I know it's not within my control, there's no point in dwelling over it. It's just about moving forward and working out what you can do to make the best out of a not so great situation.
But were you surprised when one thing didn't work out and then all of a sudden something came back from the same situation and here you are now?
Yeah, because it's like when I talk about these things is when I kind of realise like, oh wait, that happened because of that. Like, it might not be at the time, I might not realise the signs at the time, I might not be like, oh, I didn't get that, but I got that instead, and that's kind of, that only worked because of that. But it's like when you think about these things afterwards, like when I thought about the spacesuit getting taken, afterwards I was like, wait, I wouldn't have even had that spacesuit. So it's kind of like, yeah.
What are your biggest achievements so far?
Okay, biggest achievements so far, I would say my main first like noticeable big achievement, I would say, was obviously getting into Central St Martin's. As when I was younger, that was like every aspiring fashion designer's dream. And then I would say my second big achievement was when I went to Milan. I managed to like meet Rick Ross, and he was one of the first musicians to really show love to Trimmingham. So that was like, for me, that was like, that was a really good big achievement. I would say after that would have been doing my first fashion show for New York Fashion Week when I was 21. That was a really big achievement, because it's like, I'm just this young girl in New York got my own collection, and like, it's not really something that I would have ever thought that I could do. But obviously, like, the backstory to getting that is kind of like, obviously I went to New York the year before and just observed, so it's kind of like came sort of conquer sort of thing. So I went just to observe the fashion weeks, and I got talking to one of the guys that was having a fashion show, and I was like, I'm a designer from London, and he was like, oh, so next year you're going to be showcasing your collection out here? And I was like, I'm 19 or 20, however old I was like, no, I don't think so. Like, I was just like, that's just so far-fetched. But then he's like, he gave me his card, and then I ended up losing the card, unfortunately. But then like my sister was like, look out for opportunities, because obviously if he's saying this, then there's obviously opportunities for you to be able to showcase. So then managed to fly out and showcase the collection. So I would say that was a big achievement for me. And then going to uni and finishing with a first class honours, so running a business while at uni and coming out with a first, for me that kind of was a really good achievement. It was kind of like I'm proud of myself kind of moment. And then obviously the popcorn performance was definitely a huge achievement for me as well, so definitely grateful and thankful for all the great opportunities and moments that I've had so far.
Do you feel any pressure from anyone, family, friends, from doing what you do?
I wouldn't actually say I do get any pressure put on me, which is kind of like, I would say it's a good and a bad thing, because all the pressure comes from myself, and I say it quite often to my friends, kind of like, I even though I'm always working, I still don't ever feel like I'm doing enough. So people around me might be like, wow, that was a great achievement, really well done, you've done that, and I'm like, thank you. But I'm a person, I don't usually like congratulate myself all the time, other than like obviously when I got my degree, it's kind of like, okay, done that, what's next? But it's kind of like, I do need to learn to kind of like take time and enjoy the moment and not put so much pressure on myself, because it's kind of like you are doing a lot, but for me, my lot still isn't enough. But like luckily for me, like the people around me don't put pressure on me, but then I still kind of feel like they, even though they're not putting pressure on me, it's kind of like I've kind of got this kind of thing to uphold now. Like you've started something built from ground up, so the only way is up. So it's kind of like
they expect something from
exactly. It's kind of like an expectation, because like I guess like if I was like just like went kind of ghost and didn't do anything for a couple of years, people would be like, what's going on? Do you know what I mean? So there's like unconscious pressure. Yeah, I'll say that.
And what motivates you to do what you do? Like you wake up in the morning and you go hard for it. Like,
the love for it, just the love for it. And for me, like especially doing like bespoke pieces and sometimes even the ready to wear collection, it's kind of like seeing the passion and the happiness on my clients' faces when they wear my clothes. I just absolutely love it, because I remember when I very first started off, when I was just sewing away at home, one of my friends from school was one of my first customers, and literally he brought a velvet piece, because that was before velvet got kind of big, and then I remember him just putting it on and then coming out and being like, yes, look at me, I look great, like, and he was just so happy. Like I even remember my mum was like, wow, he really loved that piece, didn't he? And it will always be stuck in my mind, because it's kind of like seeing that expression, and then obviously each different client as the years have gone by, seeing that kind of expression where they're just like really happy with the product. That's my drive, definitely.